Hello everyone and welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
And I am Commander Cockins, and we're going to debrief you on today's topic.
You stole my line. I was going to say it's time for a briefing, everyone.
Well, you can brief and I can debrief.
Okay, there you go. So guys, we're here to talk about the briefing room, conference room, meeting room, discussion room, tactics room, whatever you want to call it, aboard the Enterprise, TOS style. And we got some interesting stuff to talk about because you guys have seen it in Discovery now, but you might not know how similar it looks in certain instances.
So we're doing, as with the first trailer, we did a breakdown on lots of different parts of the art style. So things from the corridor, the turbolift, things that might seem innocuous, but actually if you break it down to where it fits in the timeline, it's a really interesting thing. And in that series, we each time we asked, is it Prime, JJ, Kelvin, visual reboot, whatever. And now we know this Discovery is actually just a visual reboot that isn't trying to connect to the other timelines. Maybe NX, but yeah. And so this is more of a, we know where it fits. It's not meant to be a visual continuity with anything previous, post, or after, but we still want to look at the Enterprise, because the Enterprise, the most famous ship of all Starfleet, Star Trek history, and they made multiple sets. They redressed multiple sets. We've got the Enterprise, and so we want to bring to you just a look at history and what they did take, what they didn't take, and just see maybe some sets that they actually pulled from, maybe they invented, and what we think of the visual reboot of the Enterprise. And so what do we have here, Stuart, in the chart I made this morning?
And you did a fantastic job on it, might add.
Yeah, well,
At the top,
fun to find.
we've got 2257. This is from Such Sweet Sorrow, where we get to see the Enterprise briefing room. As you can see, they're sitting there all doing things. And then on 2254, a few years earlier, during the Cage,
Yes.
the events of the Cage, we see that one as well there. Then 2265, where no man has gone before. We see yet another view of this same room, but colorified now. Again, kind of, yeah. And then, of course, 2268 is when we see the TOS standard production Enterprise Constitution class briefing room.
And still canon. I mean, we can't stress this enough, but the TOS Connie, the 60s look, is still canon. It's still the visual continuity of that time because it's been re-set up in all these other shows. So Discovery is not a retcon, it's just another approach. Doesn't undo the first one, otherwise that would just really damage. I mean, boy, you'd have to really rethink the whole of the Star Trek universe if it did. So what's funny about this new Discovery set is it only has twice, I believe, cut into a long shot. The rest of it's very close close-ups, and so at that point it could be any room. So you can almost miss that it's a set and the effort put in. So what do you think now? You're looking at them side by side. Obviously, it's trying to fit in between Cage and Where No Man. Right.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I was impressed because it did look very similar to the one I could remember from Where No Man Has Gone Before, and I didn't really remember too much from the Cage.
Yeah.
But here you can see the similarities there, especially that top part with the red. Looks very similar to Where No Man Has Gone Before. So I'm actually really impressed. I think it was a good, subtle, subconscious, like, hey, you recognize these things. And they got some things spot on, like those chairs they're sitting in. Those are awesome. Those are like the TOS style bucket chairs that we saw. They're kind of a cross between the ones from the shuttle and the bridge ones.
Yeah.
But no, it was really good. Really great.
What's nice about a lot of these things, like the chairs, is that they don't stand out as looking old, because a lot of the stuff in the TOS era, it's not so much the shapes looking old, it's the context of maybe the very vaguely painted walls. Whereas if you were just to make them more silvery, more metally, the same thing could look way more advanced with just a new coat of paint. And so it's fun to see them fit in perfectly well. With this set, I knew I recognised it, but I knew that I knew it, but I didn't necessarily remember it from the two previous appearances, certainly not from Where No Man. And it's so cool. I mean, it's not quite TOS, which obviously then is the change. Ironically, that's now where they obviously go through some sort of refit. But I love the fact that, it's the circle bit, that's the big connective point. But there is those red lines of, okay, it's not the same with the, it's not the same room, literally, but it really, if you compare Where No Man and that one, it's like you see visual, it's like, they looked at it like, let's just paint it the same. And we're like, okay, good. But they were paying attention in one nice respect, which is the middle monitor, which is actually the three-sided triangle thing. We don't get close up on it in this episode, but that's exactly what should be there, and it looks great, and it's still functional, and it's useful, and it's there, and good. So, you know.
And I didn't notice it till this photo. I didn't notice that they even had it in that episode.
That's the thing. This whole room is really subtle. This is why this one's a good one to start with in our season, because it's actually a lot of attention to detail. Although I pretty much bet it's a redress of the Starbase set, which is a standing or flat packed set. They can put it's wall flats with whatever. So I bet it's a redress of that because the framing feels very similar, but with paint and slightly different details. Although, what do you think personally? Now, while this is not a rule of thumb, the fact that there are windows right there is a first for briefing rooms of an Enterprise, at least of the briefing rooms we've seen on the ship. I mean, what are your thoughts? Because they do stand out quite a bit and with a very distinct choice.
They do, and we speculated that they would maybe be on the BC deck or right beside the bridge. However, looking at the angle, it looks like they do angle like this. It looks almost like the edge of the saucer. So it's kind of hard to say, but it is an odd choice if they're trying to replicate the exact same room, because there were clearly no windows in any of the briefing rooms. It felt like a more enclosed set for sure. So I don't know how I feel about that exactly. People are just going to say it's just a different briefing room. There's probably a bunch of different conference rooms on the ship for things like this. So also the decided lack of any kind of artwork or monitors throughout the rest of them, all the production ones at the bottom, compared to the ones we saw in Discovery. Just seems like an odd addition, but I mean, I like it. I like the art, the seeing the ship, things like that in there is kind of appropriate. So
yeah. My answer would also be, it's just another conference room. You'd imagine there's at least 5. And given the Discovery version of the Enterprise is, for some reason, about 30% bigger or longer, maybe 7 conference rooms, because it's inexplicably just longer than the Connie from 2254, 2265, and 2268, or beyond. Well, no, I think from beyond they're about the same size now. Oops.
I got to say, though, the addition of the paintings and stuff in here is nice because it ties in with Inamir Darkly. The Defiance briefing room or conference room had a picture of the Defiant and stuff on the walls. So Kirk didn't want that detail, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the window is fine, although I really wish they hadn't done the same light shaft, because I'm sick of them, especially in the context of where they were. That doesn't work for me. All you need is a nice starfield or the green screen outside of the planet that you're around. You can have a nice green hue come in slightly, would have looked much more spacey. This, it just looks like they're an office block with light pouring in. It hasn't got that sci-fi that having the windows would give you. I'm just really pissed off by the continuous use of light shafts. It doesn't add anything when it doesn't make any sense. Like if you take the ship to around a sun to avoid something in the plot, and then now every window is a light shaft, including the bridge, and it looks really cool and cinematic, and it's like, oh, nice, yeah, this is a fun episode. Do every time, it's like, nope, why, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
And in terms of stuff around the walls, I mean, that's the thing. This is what we said before. You take the rough shape of the room, of the set, you reproduce that with a few key details, but you can visually update, whatever. I mean, if you look around the windows, you've got these pads of armor, I guess. I mean, what are they? Who knows? It's just detail. It's just detail on the walls. Why there's so many light panels when clearly in these other sets they're very lit by having less light panels. I mean, it's also being lit by set lights. But it's funny that in this far advanced future, Stuart, we have to have 50 light panels when all of our other sets can be lit with just ceiling lights. God, much more advanced. Yeah, much more advanced in the Cage era.
Yeah,
just that's a joke, but it actually kind of has some visual sense there.
And speaking of lighting, I mean, noticing those red bars and then the lighting, perforated lighting along the top, it has a very Star Wars-esque vibe almost. You always see that in the Imperial ships, all the little sectioned off, almost Morse code type style lighting. But they have it above the door here in 2265, and Where No Man Has Gone Before, the similar kind of look, right? So it's a nice subtle tie-in. which I don't know if they intended, but I thought it was fairly well done. I also got to give them props for making it a circular room, like we saw in the cage, like we see in Where No Man Has Gone Before. Because later, the one they use is clearly not a circular room; it's a much different shape. So that was a nice tie-in, which a lot of people might not notice or care about, but it's something that I really appreciate personally.
Well, if visual continuity is at all important to them, then this room fits in between Cage and Where No Man, and that's a circle room. So that should be, if you're doing your job properly, you say, right, we need to build a conference room. Okay, well, let's look. Did Cage have a conference room? Yes. Did Where No Man have a conference room? Yes. Okay, these two things, great. Let's make some sort of base on that. Like I said, I think it was a redress, so I think they just said, hey, what rooms have we got that we can redress? Let's not use the crew quarters again. Let's not use, Pike's ready room again. Let's give it something different, because that room's used for, it's used for Section 31's room and that science room. And like it's redressed 4 times in the season, so it's getting a bit, familiar. This is a very non-familiar set. So like I said, we want to start with this, 'cause I think overall we give this one an absolute thumbs up. It's a just roughly what we'd like to see in a visual update. It's basically the same, but a bit modernized. Although maybe next conference room don't have it on the saucer at the end. Just personal choice there, preference.
And I got to give them kudos really for the cage in 2254 there. Back when the cage was made, that monitor, it's a flat screen TV, widescreen, that they didn't even know would ever be a thing, especially back then. So kudos to them for that. And it does tie in again with the Discovery one with the monitors on the wall. So again, another nice little subtle touch.
Well, Cage was expensive when they made it. It was a really, really expensive pilot. They actually went all out. The sets were expensive, the costumes were expensive. People poo-poo it because 50 years have passed and it only looks slightly outdated. Whereas compared to other things in the same era, they look cheap as anything. You wouldn't even remotely watch them. These shows are all still very watchable with a very distinct art design. And some things where they even are better. If you remember in Cage, the things that come out of the consoles that have screens in them. Well, that's inter ship communication with teeny screens and teeny things that even the Disco Prize hasn't got. Even the JJ Prize, they can't communicate video we've never seen between person to person. So I mean, it's more advanced in that respect. More forward thinking even 2019. But whatever. But yeah, this one first in the season, I just want to show it off because people really could miss it very quickly. I'll cut some of the close-ups briefly, but if you look at the close-ups, it's like you don't get a sense of the room at all. But actually, nope, time and effort went into the room. So credit where it's due. Absolutely.
Exactly, and I'm glad, like you said, I'm glad we picked this first because something people might not have noticed, but we definitely appreciate it because there's a lot of good nods here. And well done to them. So,
as we always say, we call out the good and the bad, and you did good here, so we're going to call out the good. So that's it. Is that simple?
Yep. So I guess that's it for this episode, guys. Let us know your thoughts. What did you think about this room? Did you notice this room? Did you tie it in with Where No Man Has Gone Before kind of style? Let us know in the comments. We always look forward to reading them. And as always, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification icon. We got a lot more cool videos like this coming up, comparing stuff from all the series and how it ties in together. And I think it's a really fun look at the past. Samuel does fantastic jobs with these images, finding them and compiling them all together to compare them. So thank you, Samuel, for that. And if you guys want to get notified of that, click the notification icon.
Yeah, even subtly enhanced lighting and stuff just to get the most clarity out of them, because often Discovery is quite dark and that's unhelpful.
Yes.
So make it brighter sometimes. But yes, and of course, if you want to support this show, what we do, doing more shows, more concept shows which we have in the pipeline, and more ship shows. That is our bread and butter. Then please support us on Patreon. YouTube use it as a backbone of support to give a little bit each and every month, and it all comes together. And if we can hit, we want to keep about 1,000 a month or more. That is a really solid number to keep the channel going and join our lives every single week and do a super chat. Again, super important ways to super help the super channel that is Trekyards, and more importantly, you get your voice heard, you get to control the conversation. We do a lot of these cool discussions and you get to be a part of them forever, recorded in those lives. And so until next time, I guess, the next video, the next set of the Enterprise, at least the Disco Prize, I am Connor Coggins.
I'm Captain Foley.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.